Neville Jemson. Jemson.
Jemson. Jemson. Everyone gets it wrong.
Yeah. I just know you by Nev Gem.
Yeah, that's it. That's easy.
Welcome to the podcast, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
You're a bit surprised, that I asked you to come on?
Yeah, for sure. I don't really view myself as anyone special and don't really think anyone would really know me. So, yeah, took me off guard.
I guess on that point, who are you and what do you kind of do?
Just your average person, really. I just try and use my graphic design diploma and try and, I've got into photography through my passion for mountain biking and just trying to, create some different stuff and be creative with the images and taught myself photography. So kind of just trying to do my own thing.
What came first? Like the graphic design and photography or the mountain biking?
Mountain biking. Always a mountain biker first. I never really rode bikes growing up or anything. I don't even really know where it came from, how I started biking. I sort of knew the question would come up to some degree. And I don't know, I was studying furniture design at the time. And I don't even know what happened. I was like, I think I want to try mountain biking because it just seems really cool being out in the bush and cruising around. So, bought my first bike and been doing it riding for 9 years now.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm not a graphic designer. It's not my first career either. I'm a qualified cabinet maker.
Okay.
So that was sort of my first career. And then sort of from there, I tried to get into furniture design and realized it wasn't really going to work out the way I'd hoped. And I'd always wanted to do design from school. So I always said to myself that, once I qualified, if the opportunity came up, I'd try and go down that rabbit hole. And is the way it happened. It went down that way, and I studied my diploma in design in 2013, finished in 2014. It kind of just worked out that my love for writing and trying to be creative sort of push those things together, and then trying to do photography as well, and I've sort of stepped away from doing a bit more design stuff for a little while, learning photography. And now that I've sort of wrapped my brain around photography, I kind of want to join all of those three things together. And here we are.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what kind of intrigued me by you and your Instagram and everything you've kind of been doing is your photography is so different because of the graphic design elements you put on there.
Yeah.
How do you kind of go about, everyone that's a photographer or a videographer knows you kind of frame things up and, you have all the rules and everything for a good photo.
Yeah.
How do you kind of plan where you want the graphics, or what's the process behind that?
So the photography always is based off just photography for starters.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think about the graphic elements, or for the most part, when I'm taking the photos, it's more just trying to take a good photo, and then some of the sequence stuff just works out that it looks like, it was a cool photo. So I sort of go back through and see if this whole sequence looked good, and then I put together some of those little GIFs or stop motion things or whatever you want to call it. And a lot of the other stuff, it's just because I've got so many race photos now because I started doing that. I'll post those galleries up and post the best photos there, and then I've got so many photos. It's what else can I do? And just going through the normal, the scroll on Instagram on a daily basis, or seeing some cool ideas that some YouTubers and stuff have done. I try and apply those ideas or those different techniques or whatever to the mountain bike photos, because I've never really seen a lot of the stuff that I play around with, and go from there. Sometimes I just scroll through Pinterest looking for cool effects or cool, just things that are applied in other, industries or different areas. And I try and just apply those techniques or tricks to but just mountain bike photos and stuff.
Well, it's getting harder and harder to stand out with that type of thing, right? Even Sven Martin or Mad Dog Boris and those crew, you look through their photos and you can still kind of get a bit bored with it in a way.
I think it just comes down to the oversaturation, like you sort of think, if you sort of stop and think about it, there's so many great photos on there, but because you're scrolling past hundreds of great photos at a time, it all just becomes the normal. So it more stands out having, I don't know, if something's absolutely horrible or if something's like so different that, that's what stands out and that's what catches your attention. But it's just funny. You think about the backstory and how stoked someone was maybe with that photo or how much actual time and effort it took to create that image. And here you are just, it's gone in under a second. You're like, oh, yeah, cool. Maybe it might get a like, maybe it doesn't. And then, yeah, it's crazy. We're just oversaturated with good stuff these days.
Yeah. And with stories, it's even getting worse on Instagram.
Oh, yeah, totally. It's kind of... Yeah, you got to use, if you were that way, you sort of use it a certain way, I guess, because stories are more for a story. It's like what you're doing on a daily basis, or maybe it's to draw people to go to your feed kind of thing. It all depends how you want to use social media, if you want to sort of build some sort of a platform or if it's just your daily thing or whatever. Yeah, there's just different tools to get attention, I guess. But yeah, it's so easy. Just tap, swipe, and away you go. People don't read so much anymore, so it's probably unlikely if you post the same image in your stories you would on your feed, then why would anyone need to go to the feed to read the caption or anything?
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of like oversaturation, I mean, how long ago did you do your kind of graphic design diploma and get into that field? And like lately, you've just seen everyone kind of wants to go down that route, maybe because this whole isolation thing, but it was even pre that, like everyone. Like, how long ago did you do yours, and has that kind of saturation affected you?
So I did my diploma in 2013 and finished at the start of 2014. But my social media and all that creative stuff, I never really thought about basing it around biking and stuff then. It was kind of just more, share with people that and, just your typical, this is what I did on the weekend kind of thing, or this was cool. And it wasn't so much about creating any of that. So I sort of never put those two together for a while, and probably until more recently. I think there's some misconception about graphic designers and how popular it is, and people see it as like a really cruisy, easy lifestyle because you can work from home and then you've got more free time to write or work with cool companies and stuff. But because so many people want to do it, the industry is just super competitive. Every man and his dog can do stuff and know someone else who can do it, and everyone undercuts each other, and there's just no value. People see the final product and they just assume, oh yeah, that's easy. Like, you've just got some lines in a circle. I could do that easy. But it's the journey and the work involved to get to that final step. The initial client might have said, oh, okay, I want a logo for about cars. And you're like, all right, well, give me some information. Do you have specialties? La la la, and they're like, oh, I don't know, I just like cars. Like, can you just create something? So, you've got to go through all these concept stages, and I've sort of created a little questionnaire to get more answers out of people to help me sort of speed it up or create a better logo for them. So, yeah, it's just so much time and effort involved in it. It's just hard. I think people sort of really don't see and understand how long that takes. And then you've got the, you're quicker or better at doing things because you've done it for a while, and you've invested in that trade or the skill. So people don't value the cost of it either.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just creative in general. So I find it really hard I'm a little bit jaded on the whole design stuff lately, like as a freelance sort of side thing, just because the amount of time and effort that you put into it versus what people want to pay you, it's a real struggle. And then having gone more down the photography route, which is something I have wanted to do more of, it's just as hard to price for that stuff too, because people don't see the cost of your time to learn how to do it. They don't see how expensive the gear is. You've learnt the skills enough to put your own spin and your own flavour and create your own style. So, the creative industry is just hard. And so many people, like, you can take really good photos on a phone these days, and there's so many different software hacks and things to make life easier, where you don't really, to a certain degree, you don't really need to study to do these things.
No, that's exactly right. Like, you can pretty much learn everything on YouTube or Googling it these days.
YouTube's like the best resource ever, but
yeah.
I mean, how to do bike mechanic stuff, how to, even though I've studied, I still use it all the time, but it becomes easier to, what am I trying to say? The lingo, so how do I use a clipping mask? Whereas if you hadn't studied, you don't know what a clipping mask is, for example. So you're like, oh, how do I do the thing with this thing and that thing? So it's harder to find the answer. Whereas if you know the lingo and the terminology, it's so much easier to find what you're after. So I guess that's one advantage.
Mm. And apart from like the technology thing and the learning, you've also got to have the talent and creativity from it as well, right? Like, anyone can draw a circle, but not everyone can draw it like creatively.
Yeah.
When did you kind of discover that you like that, or has it been something with you since like high school? Or
I think I've sort of always liked drawing. My grandma was a really good painter, not famous or anything like that, but she did really good like oil painting and stuff. So I have a couple of memories from when we were growing up where, you'd sit down at grandma's kitchen table and do some painting and stuff, which was cool. And I always remember growing up, I was like, when I grow up, I want to be a cartoonist. And then, I don't know. It's just the funny things you remember. And then in high school, I really enjoyed graphics design class and the variety of things. And I kind of was swaying towards doing more, I guess, architectural design. I really liked doing perspective drawing and all that sort of stuff. It was really cool. And I don't know, it was just something I kind of always wanted to explore a bit more. But after finishing school, I sort of didn't really commit to saying I wanted to do that. And because I didn't know what I wanted to do, Dad was like, he was a tradie through and through. He's really good with working at his hand. He's one of those sort of older generations that can just do anything. And he was always like, get the trade behind you. You'll have that skill for life. Once you finish it, go and do whatever you want. And if things don't work out, you've always got that to fall back on. And as it was, it's probably, I do not regret doing it because it's allowed me to learn to work with my hands and give me the skills to fix things around the house and whatnot. And as it turned out, I fell back on it many times. I've studied a few times, and the design industry being so competitive, I had to, work part-time doing that while I was studying. And then while I couldn't find a full-time job, I was working part-time cabinet making. And it was hard because it wasn't a good paying job, and cabinet making is a trade where it's down to the millimetre. It really doesn't get paid enough as it should. But it's just the nature of the beast, and that's what sort of drew me to get away from it.
So you like being underpaid? Is that what I'm kind of hearing?
It's just worked out unfortunate, I think. Everything that I decide that I like to do doesn't pay well.
Welcome to the club, man. Welcome to the club.
It seems like so many other people are getting paid, they're paying for good bikes, and they've got good cars, and they're doing this and they're doing that. And you're like, oh, everyone must be on like way more than me. Like, here I am struggling. Sometimes it's, a struggle to get your suspension serviced or whatever, or it's crazy.
Yeah, I got that same problem, except it's all on bikes. And every time I say I'm struggling, my missus is like, just add up how much you've spent on the bikes, and you're really not struggling there.
Yeah, I mean, I've got too many expensive hobbies now, and it's like, well, which one do I direct the most of the funds at? Photography's not cheap. Bikes isn't cheap. We're pretty into the snow sports as well, and that's not cheap. And just the fun side of life's a money pit.
Oh, always.
But I mean, that's why we live, isn't it?
Exactly. Do you find like that makes you work harder in some aspects? Or do you find like
when
you're doing it more because you're enjoying it?
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to get to. Like, it's a lot easier to put in and to do those extra side jobs when it's something you enjoy. The race photography is a prime example of that. You know, like I just started going out to do that stuff because I wanted to go and take photos of bikes. And then for a while, you know, I was just giving all the photos away. It's like, yeah, cool. If people want to use my photos, I'm stoked on that. And then, you know, after a couple of races, you're like, this is actually a lot of work. Like, you know, I've got to pay to go there. I've got to spend my time to go and take these photos. I've got to edit them. I've got to pay for the equipment and stuff. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to give these away for long. So after a little while, it was all right. Well, you know, I'll start charging for it, and then it's kind of exciting too, because you go to the races, you take the photos. It's exciting to see what they look like, and then you chuck them all up. And then when you start seeing the purchases come through, you're like, oh, I'm getting paid for this. Like I just had fun going to a race and taking photos. And now, you know, I'm getting paid for these photos. So it doesn't seem like a job. But something you had to do every single week. You know, when you do anything enough, it becomes a job and becomes a chore. So it's a good change.
It's kind of that weird feeling when you're there taking photos or you're covering an event. Like you forget that you're actually there to do work, because you kind of get immersed in the fun of it. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Like for nationals, I just went up for the one day because that's just the way it worked out. I only had the day free, and I'm like, oh, do I just go up? It's like a 5-hour drive from me, and I'm like, do I do it? It's like 10 hours driving for, you know, maybe there for 7 hours to take photos, and I'm like, I've been wanting to go for a couple of years, but it sort of never worked out. And, as it turned out, we were supposed to be getting married like a week or two after that, so we were supposed to be going to do some venue prep on that weekend, and something just worked out, and I was like, you know what, stuff it. Like, I'm not going to lose anything. The only thing I'm going to be is tired if I do go. So I went, and yeah, it was awesome. I had an awesome time. I mean, I was hanging out on my own on the side of the track taking photos and stuff, but it was still wicked fun.
That was a great weekend.
Yeah, I wish I could have spent a bit more time.
How do you go about managing like your workflow and stuff for a race weekend like that? Like that sounds hectic to start with, but do you find a workflow pretty quickly, or did it take a while to kind of refine?
How do you mean a workflow?
So I guess like getting to the event, preparing your gear, taking the photos, making sure they're good photos. You know, it seems like now that they have to be edited and sent out to someone before you even leave the venue.
Yeah, that's the expectation. Like I always joke with, I shoot with another photographer, and her and I are always like, oh, let's see how many people like hit us up for photos before we've left the event or before we've even got home and stuff. And without fail, there's always a few people that are always like, oh, did you get any photos of this race plate? And you're like, dude, I'm still here. Like, I don't think you realize how these photos are done. But yeah, I don't know. Like I'm like really anal about being prepared and stuff. So I'm always making sure my gear bag's packed like the night before. And if it happens to be where I'm for a whole weekend, like I make sure the car's like packed the day before, and always like check how long it takes to get there, check on the Facebook page what time everything's happening, and if it's just a practice day before or a race day, sort of suss out all the event timing. And because I'm not there, I'm not paid to be there, it's just off my own back, there's not so much pressure. So like to get the shots or whatever. So it's pretty chill. I like to sort of get there for practice and make my way up from the bottom of the track to the top just to sort of find any cool spots or to see anything. I don't tend to like to just go to the main spots that you see because you obviously see them all the time and everyone's used to seeing that photo. So I like to just see what looks cool. And if you're walking up the track, the whole length of the track, you know, there might be a cool corner that the rider's body position changes where no one else really sees that if they just go to the hot spots. But that might be a sick photo. So I find it's a really good way to just sort of see what the riders are doing when they come down. And if it's for practice, then, you know, it's a good way to check a whole heap of different areas without having to, you know, be in one spot for particular riders to come down. But it's always really hard to try, and I find the race runs for the elites, because you probably will get best photos of the elites. I sort of never, by that time of the day, I don't really know where I should be, or you want to go to multiple places and you're like, well, if I leave now, I'm probably going to miss like the next 5 to 10 riders, or I might not get good shots. It's like, do I just stay here and get the same shot of all the elite riders, or do I try and change in a spot? And yeah, it'd be really hard if you had to get X amount of shots of X people and stuff. But because I'm there on my own, I sort of can just, you know, do what I feel on the day, I guess.
Mm-hmm. But obviously, being a rider yourself makes finding those spots a little bit easier because you can kind of predict what happens.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you can sort of, you know, what the conditions are going to be like, or how people will probably take a line, and yeah. But like overall, the workflow, it's way easier because like I say, I keep saying I'm doing it off my own back. So sort of just get there, make sure I'm set up, I usually take food with me and stuff because I don't like to just waste money on shitty food and stuff.
Yep.
Take my little coffee set up, which is killer. Have a little coffee on the side of the trail while I'm waiting in between categories or whatnot.
Yeah, sick. Yeah.
And then, me personally, I'm really excited to see what the photos come out like. So as soon as I get home, I like unpack all my gear, and then I'm like straight on the computer for, depending on what time I get home, I want to see what they look like. So if I know I've got some good photos, I might try and just find those ones and maybe edit a few quickly and got a few to post up for the next day or something, just to like build the hype or whatever. And try and, if I've got enough time, go back and start maybe shortlisting good photos, because obviously you're not going to post up every photo of a sequence kind of thing. So you might just pre-select or highlight the best one of each sequence kind of thing, and then you've got your shortlist and build like a look for that photo and save it, and then it gets a lot easier. You can sort of apply that to all the photos and then tweak per photo after that. It probably takes at least two after work sessions to get it all done. If you're lucky, you might get it done on like a Tuesday night or a Wednesday morning, post them all up. But it's pretty full on. But for me, it's really enjoyable still. So yeah, it's kind of just like a continuation of the fun of the event. So
yeah, exactly. And how did you go from shooting races and just going off your own back to getting in the commercial side of things? Did your graphic design work help kind of funnel work in, or was it just getting noticed?
I'd say I'm still trying to get into the commercial side of things, really. I've had a couple of lucky breaks, but I don't work in the industry full time. I'm sort of graphic designer for, like an in-house designer for a company,
Okay.
a type company. So I'm still trying to get into the industry, and it's something that, you know, I really want to do, and to get my career into working in the industry. I guess just shooting a lot, shooting with the right people or talking to the right people. I mean, networking, as it goes with everything, is probably the best way to get into things. And I'm pretty shy in person. It's so much easier for me to just talk to people through Instagram. and just one comment leads to another or something, or if I happen to get a good photo of someone who I know of, I'll just be like, oh, hey, like, got a good photo. If you're interested, just shoot your email if you're keen. So, and that might just lead to some other opportunities. Like, I think after the first race, I'd sent a photo of the Vic Downhill Series last year. I sent a photo to Jackson, and then he was keen on that, and then he passed my name on for a photo job at Threadbow at Cannonball. But I couldn't get it. Wasn't going to work out. But I had to go all the way up there, and I hadn't already organised anything, so that one sort of didn't work out. But just instances like that, you give a little and people remember, and hopefully, they pass your name on if something comes up, and networking like that. I mean, if it came to a face-to-face networking thing, I probably wouldn't do too good. There's always graphic design meetups and stuff, and I've got another friend that I used to work with. She's like, oh, you should come to this thing. There's going to be these people there. And I'm just like feeling anxious just talking about it. I don't know what to say. Face, like, I can't turn it on at the drop of a hat kind of thing. So at least social media is that's one of the best things about social media for me is, a lot of people are so approachable, like the Australians especially, like you can pretty much just hit up any of the local races or any other photographer, and everyone's pretty chill and happy to help.
For sure. That's exactly the same as me, man. Everything's good on social media or email or phone, but then face to face, I just don't like it. There's something weird about it.
Like because I don't post photos of myself either, it's kind of perfect because I might talk to someone and, oh yeah, we're going to be at this event too, we should hook up or something, and I get there and I see them and I'm like, oh yeah, I was supposed to like go say good day to that person, and I'm like, no, I can't do it. And because they don't know what I look like, I can kind of just like walk off with my tail between my legs.
Just coast off, yeah.
Grown adult being too shy to talk to people.
Oh, it definitely happens. Trust me, I'm the same.
Yeah.
Did you ever get starstruck by anyone, or like meeting them, or it doesn't matter? You're just kind of scared not scared, but anxious with everyone.
I wouldn't really think that I've sort of met anyone too famous or any well-known people yet. I think probably Baxter's probably the only person that I've met who's got a bit of a profile, I'll say. But he was super chill. Sort of, he had plenty in common, so he's easy to get on with.
Yeah, he's definitely a chill dude. That's for sure. I honestly thought he was like 5'5", and then I saw him and he's like 6'3". So weird.
I think that photo, I think it was the photo that you posted from the chat with him. For some reason, he looks like he's small in that photo.
Yeah.
He's a big dude.
He's tall. Very tall. And speaking of Baxter and commercial work and stuff, you just had that ad in Revo with DMR?
Yeah, that's sick.
How did it feel, like opening up a magazine and seeing your work in there? Is that like the first time you've had that happen, or? So
that's my third time in Revo.
Oh, sick.
So I actually got a photo in from the very first race I shot, actually. I got in touch with Matt Rossu, another photographer. I'm not sure how to say his last name. And he put me in touch with JT because I was saying, I took all these photos. I don't know what to do with them, or and he put me in touch with JT at Revo. So I sort of emailed him some photos, and I was just like, I just wanted to know if you'd be interested in any of these. And that was the Continental Series qualifier at Mount Buller a couple of years. Okay. And yeah, they put a photo of Ray Morrison that I took from that in their sort of recap of that race. So that was pretty cool. That was only a small photo, but hey, it's in the magazine anyway, so pretty stoked. I sort of couldn't believe it. So yeah, that was really cool. And then the second one, I think I just emailed JT again, and I was just saying that, I was really keen to try and get some more stuff in the magazine, and I'd sort of shown him, I sent him a bunch of stuff that I was just playing around with, and he liked one of it, and it was what was it? It turned out being two content spreads. One of the content spread for the main section, and then the content spread for the Evo e-bike section as well. So it was kind of just like a splatter effect over the photo. So it was just like the photo, and then it was like white splatter, and it sort of just went into being full white.
Yeah, I remember that.
The one photo for the normal section was Shelley Flood at Derby coming down Trouty.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one, I think it was actually Matt Stagg's photo. They'd sent me of Jack Moyer riding the Taser. And then they just asked if I had any e-bike photos, and I didn't, so they provided it. So, yeah. And then the last DMR one, I just met up with Baxter. We sort of talked for a little bit, and then finally organised to do the shoot. And he was like, yeah, maybe we could try and get some DMR stuff. We tried a couple of different photo ideas, and it was a little while after we did that shoot, actually, but then he just got in touch and he was like, yeah, Mitch at DMR wanted to run one of the photos as an ad and just, shoot it through. So we did, and now it's an ad, full-page ad.
Sick. That's pretty rad.
Yeah. So I'm really stoked on that. So I've kept all those ones, and try and frame them to some degree at some point would be kind of cool. I know it's not anything super amazing, but your first couple of photos in a magazine and not too long shooting photos is pretty cool.
For sure. And especially that magazine being like almost the Australian Bible of mountain biking, to me anyway. But yeah.
Well, what is it? The Australian New Zealand Gravity something or other? I can't remember.
I can't even remember. I work for him and I can't even remember. It's terrible. Australia, New Zealand's number one gravity and all mountain focused mountain bike magazine.
Okay.
So let's wind back and change the subject a little bit. You mentioned you just kind of got interested in mountain biking, like it just kind of appeared to you almost. What was your first bike, and what was it like getting into the sport? How old were you at the time?
That's a good question. So I seriously don't even remember what it was that sparked my curiosity about it. I remember the thought of when I was like, yeah, I want to try that out. It looks fun. I think one of my cousins had started doing it, but I don't really remember hearing that much about it. And then I don't know if I saw something or watched something, but I was like, I think I want to try it. It seems like a pretty fun idea. So I went out and spent a lot of money, which I thought was a lot of money at the time, and I bought a hardtail, a Specialized hard rock.
Sick.
So it was a 29er. I had no idea about wheel sizes at the time. And it was just like, that was it, down the rabbit hole after that. I think I used my tax return money, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to buy a bike. And I think I spoke to my cousin who had done it, and he's like, yeah, you want to make sure you've got like a fork, a suspension fork, and your disc brakes. So I was like, all right, that's what I need. So for some reason too, Specialized has always been the brand for me. I think I remember when we were early high school, there was one of the local kids. I remember he upgraded his bike and he was just going on about it forever. And it was, I don't remember the model, but it was a TJ Lavin model BMX style bike. It was like one of those wireframe ones or something. I just remember black and red. I don't remember exactly what the bike looked like, but I think that was just the only bike brand I knew. So I was like, all right, when I buy a bike, I want to get that same brand. Like, no reason, just because it's familiar, you know? So, I went to went to a bike shop and just started looking around, and I don't even know if I researched it or not, but I was just like, I found the one that was like black and green. Green's like my favorite color, and black is black. So I was like, that's the one for me. So $800 on that, and I thrashed that thing. I had so many issues with it just because I was taking it on proper trails, and it was probably a pretty basic, low spec hardtail. But I took that out in the Uis down here. Rode it Lisfield heaps. Actually rode out Stonefly on Buller on that probably a few times. Found out about clip pedals, and once you start getting into it, it really is a warren and a rabbit hole of different things. It's like, you think, all right, this is a bike, and then there's full suspension bikes, and then there's like different brands, and there's different types of suspension, and you've got clips and flats and whatever, and it's just like there's so many different things to try out when you're first starting, and then you're like, well, where do I ride? What type of riding do I like? And yeah, it's crazy. I think I only ended up having that bike for maybe it was under 2 years. I want to say it was about probably 18 months or so. And I was just having issues having to replace things because it was being pretty hard on it, riding some pretty proper trails on the cheap hardtail. But that's the best way to start, isn't it? You got to find out you're into something before you go and drop serious cash.
Well, I'm surprised it lasted 18 months, to be honest with you. If you're riding like Uis and Stonefly and all that type of thing, it's... I'm not sure that's what the designers had in mind at that point. But
nah, but hey, it did pretty good. I never cracked the frame. I'm not real big into jumping because just can't do it. I've had too many bad crashes. But yeah, it's just things. I think I broke one of the rings on the cassette. I think I just cracked it off and didn't even realize. And I was just trying to climb up a hill in too high gear, and it was like, oh, my chain just dropped off. I don't know what happened. And then get home and you're like, oh, like this whole gear's missing. Like, what's going on there? And took it back to the shop, and I'm like, yeah, like there's no gear here. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't know, like pure ignorance. Like I only just started riding. I'm like, I've got no idea. And they're like, pretty sure we would have picked that up. And I'm like, oh, I don't know, it's not there. So they warranted it, but they weren't real happy about it. Yeah, just changing things. Like, I think I broke a shifter paddle on the shifter, and I was like, yeah, I just went in the bike shop. I'm like, you can just replace that paddle. And they're like, oh, we don't replace paddles. You've got to buy a whole new thing. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? That's like a couple $100. That's like the cost of the bike, it's not really worth. And then just the struggle of like trying to find bike shops that they're gonna give you the time of day, and they give you the good service even though you don't have the highest end bikes or you don't really know them or whatever. It was always a struggle. And I used to ride Listerfield a lot because that was pretty close. It was like 30-40 minutes to me, so that was where I sort of started off. And there was a shop there, Trail Mix, which was right there, and it was really cool because it was sort of like tucked in amongst this good park there. And that became like my shop, and it hasn't been there for years now, but yeah, that was pretty cool. And then after that disappeared, it's like, oh, well, I need to try and find another shop. And obviously mountain biking is not super common unless you're in areas that trails are, so it was always a bit of a struggle. But after that bike, it was like, right, I need a dual suspension. So I started working lots of weekends in my cabinet making and trying to get extra cash scraped together. And I think the first bike was $800, and then the second bike, it was a Specialized camber, so it was like a 115 or a 120, somewhere around there, front and rear. I think that was $3,300 I paid for that. So that's like a huge step when you're starting out. It's like, oh, shit, thousands of dollars for a push bike. What am I doing? It's like you're pushing $10,000 to buy a bike.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that thing. I was like always wash it, and then you'd be like, oh, this thing's sick. And then just not knowing, like I sort of rode with, I got one of the guys that I used to work with cabinet making into riding, so I used to ride with him a lot, and he was in a car accident, so he had a lot of like pain in his hips and stuff, so he sort of could never really do too much, and so I ended up just riding with myself a lot. And then I got that bike, and I was like, oh, you need to get one of these too. And he's like, no, I can't justify it, kind of thing. So I'd ride with myself, by myself most of the time. And, you think you got something sick, and then you kind of delve more into the world of mountain biking, and you start seeing, all the videos and stuff, and you're like, oh, this bike's actually not that good. And then started having more issues with that. So I think I had no idea about the maintenance of bikes when I started.
Okay.
Like I would clean it, but it's like, what is servicing suspension? What's that? Go like 6 months to a year to riding through mud and shit and have no idea. And you're like, oh, why is these scratches on the stanchions on my fork? Like, can you just fix that? And they're like, nah, that's not good. So I
pen will fix it.
I ended up destroying my shock, and I took it to a shop in Preston. It was called Tekken, and they were suspension experts.
Oh, yeah.
They were sick, but that was like over an hour away from my house. I had no idea, and I had having to go back and forth to deal with that. And the guy was he was rad in there. He was real nice, helped me out, but it was just such a pain in the ass having to go there, make a mission of it, and on a Saturday morning to try and get there, and off the bike for a month or so trying to get all that sorted. And so I had it dialed, and I think the bike came with just silvery goldy stanchions on the suspension, and then that one swapped over that shock, and it was all black, and I was like, this thing's sick, it's all black, it matches. And the fork was still that sort of goldy colour, but I don't know. Image is always pretty important.
100%. 100%.
So I had that bike. Go on.
It's a bit interesting listening to like how you it's not like a struggle, but it's like an awkward entry into the sport almost. Like
it was just like completely ignorant, sort of come into it not knowing anything about it, and then finding out all about it by myself. So it was pretty crazy. I got another one of my good friends into it, and we sort of learned a lot of it together and got a bit more serious. And then I did my studying, so I still rode a fair bit when I had time, but then I got a full-time job straight out of uni in design, and that lasted 7 months, and then I couldn't get another full-time job, and I was just sick of applying stuff. I was sick of cabinet making, and I saw a job come up for trail building at World Trail, and I was like, I think this is it. I need to do something different. So I ended up applying for that, and I started working with World Trail after that. That was in 2016. So I did that, and going from, me and one mate riding, sort of thinking I knew a lot, thinking I was pretty quick, I joined up with all the guys down in Derby building there, and it was just like, holy shit, I know nothing. It's just a huge culture shock of like thinking you know something, or you're good at something, and then going to people, being around people that are super into it and are good riders, and you're just like, holy shit, it's like a whole new world. But
who were you building with down there?
When I went down there, only Reese out of the main guys was there.
Okay,
Reese
Atkinson. Yeah.
I don't know who you know.
Ride a bike.
Yeah, maybe.
Was Ryan Delarue and stuff down there at that time?
Ryan was still at Falls at that time when I first went down there. But so I worked there for most of 2016. So over the year, I sort of knew everyone and sort of became friends with Ryan and Reese and Glenn, and Max is one of the other main builders down there now, and it's one of those sorts of jobs where people don't tend to stay in it for a long time, though. So a lot of the guys that I worked with for that year, or pretty much all of them besides Ryan, Reese and Max, aren't there anymore. But I've told Ryan before that was probably one of the best experiences of my life going to do that. Just being around and, hanging out with like-minded people, and it was huge for me. Like I never felt like a tradie, so I kind of never felt like I was where I needed to be. So going into that, everyone knows what you're talking about when you talk bike stuff. I see that edit or, those new parts of that new bike, and they're like, yeah, they know exactly what you're talking about. Whereas, when I was doing trades or hanging out with my other friends, I'm like, oh, did you see that? Or like they ask you questions and you're like, it's just, there's a huge disconnect. So yeah, it was really cool doing that, and getting to be involved in Derby, which is what it's turned out to be, was absolutely crazy. Yeah. So that
your riding would have just like increased exponentially just from
Yeah, for sure. And the reason I brought all of that up was because it was, I had my Canberra at the time, and then I bought Ryan's old S-Works Enduro. So I went from a 29er, 100 mil travel like trail down country, whatever you want to call it these days, bike, to then having a full blown 160, 27 and a half single ring enduro weapon, full carbon. Last bike was alloy, and I was just like, holy shit, this thing is amazing. So it was like small bike to highest end bike you can get, that was crazy. And then I went from that to that was a 2016 model. That was it's like gunmetal grey with green and red S-Works Enduro.
Yeah, another one.
Had that, and then after that, it's got to the point after that bike, it was like, I don't want to hang on for it for too long so I can still sell it and get another good bike. So I had that for, I reckon, under 2 years as well, and then I bought my next Enduro, which was the red and black Enduro Pro 2018. And I sold that in March because I was getting ready for my knee operation, and I'd been trying to sell it for a while because I was trying to work out getting a new bike, and then having the knee operation. Obviously, I wasn't going to be able to ride it for a while. So I was like, if I can sell it, good. If I can't, no biggie. But out of the blue, someone hit me up about it, and I think he hit me up on the Friday, and he came around on the Sunday, and he ended up buying it. So yeah, I've been without a bike since March, which has probably been the longest time in 9 years I haven't ridden for by far. And then now, being out of action for the last 6 weeks with the 7 weeks with the knee operation. It's been a hard old time, doing the thing that you do to get away and to de-stress and exercise. It's your gym, and it's been pretty crazy.
Definitely takes a toll being down that road for sure.
Yeah, it's crazy. You don't realize what it was for you until you lose it, kind of thing. Like I always 100%. Knew like it was good for mental health. It was my gym, and did it to de-stress from work and all that sort of stuff. But it really sort of just solidifies that when you don't have it.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
It's crazy. It's a bicycle when you think about it, but it just does really good things.
It's just got this weird magical effect in there somewhere.
It does, absolutely.
I'm still kind of blown away though, like that you kind of take in a bike to a bike shop and they kind of look down on it. Like that's not a thing I guess I've heard of it before, but yeah, I'm still kind of blown away by you saying that. Like,
I don't know about looking down on it, but it's just, I don't know. I feel like bike shops can be a bit cliquey if you've never been in there before, or you might see someone who's you think's a noob, or I don't know, judging a book by its cover. Someone's not really a full-fledged cyclist in one degree or another, and I don't know. Maybe it was just my ignorance of not knowing how much things cost and thinking that they're taking me for a ride, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Don't worry, I've
Yeah.
had this that whole like shifter paddle not being replaceable is mind blowing to me still. Like, it's
Yeah, I've had another one where I had one of the linkage bolts in the camber through not maintaining it. It wore the thread down on it so it wouldn't fit in the frame properly. And I was like, oh, I'm having this issue. Like, this bolt's real loose. It won't get tight. And they're like, oh, yeah, like, this has happened. I'm like, oh, yeah, all right, let's just order that one bolt. They're like, no. It's the set. You can't buy one bolt. I'm like, what do you mean? And it cost me like $100 for the set for one bolt.
Yep.
And I was like, fuck me. Bicycles, what are you doing to me?
Yep, 100%. I don't understand it. It's one bolt. Or why don't you just use all the same bolt on all the pivots? But anyway.
So now I'm like anal about bike maintenance and cleaning. Comes back to learning things on YouTube all right, how do I service hubs and, maintain, like what do I actually lube on a bike to maintain it and all that sort of stuff. So it's a real shitty ride. You go out and wash it straight away and put it away and get all that good crush product going on there. And
that's a little product plug there.
I got to support the local brands, don't you?
Oh, yeah. He's a legend down there. What, or if anything, what has anything transferred from riding and getting into bikes transferred to like your workflow and work, or is it mainly just that de-stress type thing?
I don't really know. It's probably just the de-stress thing. I feel like as I'm getting older, I'm getting more like anal and prepared about things. So it's kind of just personal things flow on from me into all my other interests and works and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess as a graphic designer and working with other brands and stuff, was there any, this is what I'm kind of interested, were there any logos or any designs that you've seen like in bikes, like frame colors or frame designs or anything that you've looked at and you've just gone, damn, that's not right, or like, god damn, that's horrible?
Oh, yeah, there's always plenty of questionable paint jobs. Why do they do that? They should have just, just go with the classic colors and stuff. There's no like super bad ones, but there's just things like when you see that the gradient fade of one color to another on a frame. I've noticed some of them just like it happens really quickly, and I'm like, they should just like drag it out so that it progresses a little further and it would look a lot better. But things like that, or I wasn't really a fan of the SWorks Enduro, the texture that they had under the raw carbon last year's model. I wasn't a big fan of that, but that's just personal preference. I don't know.
There haven't been any logos or anything that you're like, nah, that probably shouldn't have done that, or is it all pretty good?
A lot of logo stuff's pretty good. Like you might see some stuff in some magazines layout-wise and stuff that could be changed to the way maybe you would usually do it, or stuff like that. Or a lot of the big companies, like they've got pretty good designers and stuff. So I'd say all of their stuff's really good. It might just be like other little brands or little startups, if they're not trying to spend the money or can't afford the money to pay someone that knows what they're doing, they might just make little things. But I don't feel like it's my place to tell people. Like, I'm no expert. It's not like I've been doing this for 20 years with all these like good accolades or worked with all these big. It's like, yeah, who am I to tell someone that something doesn't look good just because it's my opinion,
Is there any brand you've seen that just like nails it with their colors and stuff or designs, in your opinion?
I really like YT's style.
Okay.
their social media imagery is really good in their design stuff. Like the whole the launch of the Izzo, it was all the samurai stuff. That was
Yeah, that was sick. Yeah.
But I kind of feel like it's not really what you see in the mountain bike industry. So it's a little bit far left, but I really like it. Some of their graphics that they do in their carousels in Instagram is really cool, how they'll split some of the images down the chainstay and there's like a bit of a lightning bolt or a rip or something. Some of that stuff's really cool. But yeah, off the top of my head, the YT stuff is really cool. I'm a big fan of that. The bikes always look really good. Their colours are really cool. But yeah, I think it's just one of those preference things. They don't sort of do anything too out there. But I guess that's just knowing their market. But then I'm not like, it's another one of
German as well, so they're never going to do anything too crazy.
But then if you do stuff out there, it dates, is it trending for that year to run pastel colours or, but I mean, people don't tend to keep bikes for too long anyway. So, I mean, it's one of those things in mountain biking. You kind of want to keep up with the latest and greatest as much as you can. So, I don't know, things change quickly, but there's some frame colours and stuff. I'm not huge for colour anyway. I'm pretty neutral. So, that's just my personal opinion. Frame colours and stuff. But yeah, I think there's nothing really bad that I can think of. And as far as the good stuff goes, yeah, definitely YT stuff stands out for me. What else? I'd have to go have a scroll.
Yeah.
Refresh my memory.
But YT have definitely done those like little things where they just kind of bring out something a little bit different.
Yeah, definitely. I like the more, I guess, kind of grungy type stuff. More like the traditional tattoo kind of stuff. Like I'm a big fan of that sort of stuff. So I like skulls and that, but it's pretty played out. So something that's that kind of like more rough and raw kind of stuff is what I like. But it's kind of hard to, you can't always just put skulls in mountain biking stuff because it doesn't really relate.
No.
What's a skull?
Narrows the market so much as well.
Yeah, and yes, it's cool, but like you can only use it so much. So you kind of have to find, I don't know, the textures or the elements that you can incorporate from that into sort of other graphic elements. I don't know. It's kind of, I still can't even really work it out sometimes. You have an idea in your head and you're like, yeah, like I know what I want it to look like, but how do I get it into the style that I want? And that's kind of where I'm at with my ability now is I'm trying to get that grunge, I guess, into some of my work.
Where would you say you draw like your inspiration and your kind of ideas from? Is there any specific place or like do you look at a lot of tattooing and stuff like that or?
It depends on the client and the type of stuff that I'm doing. Like I really do like traditional tattooing stuff. I'm a huge fan of that. Always have been. There's a couple of illustrators that I'm a big fan of. One's called God Machine. He just does like these crazy dark skulls and stuff, and it's just like super textured. And then there's another street artist who's Austrian, Nitros. He does these crazy exploded versions of heaps of different things. I've got a print here on the wall. It's like a kangaroo. He came down and did an exhibition down here a couple of years ago, and he did a massive mural in Collingwood or Brunswick. It's next to this burger place, Easy's. So Easy Street. I can't remember what the street's called, but there's a massive mural up there, and he did a limited print run there, and it's a kangaroo that you can see. It's like a cutaway, so you can see all its internals and stuff.
Yeah.
All that sort of stuff. He's done like Simpsons characters and like animals, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, all that tattoo stuff and street art is, I really like all that sort of stuff. But yeah, for the I still don't really know how to incorporate that into the photography and the graphic element overlays into that as well. So it's something I'm still trying to play with. I think some of those, the last few images I've posted with the rips and the textures and all that sort of stuff on Instagram is kind of experimenting with that a bit more because I've got plenty of time now and there's no races happening and stuff. So I've got a bit of time to think and experiment about that sort of thing. But it's also hard too because I'm working full time as a designer and I'm staring at a screen 8, 9, 10 hours a day to go and then do that on the weekend as well.
Yeah.
But I love it. So sometimes it's easy, but other times it's like, I don't want to touch it. Like I'm sitting there all week. I don't want to sit at the desk all weekend as well.
100%.
That's why the bike is the good break, you know. You can go for a ride for a day or a few hours or whatever and all's reset.
That's why my bike's so unmaintained, is because I spend a week maintaining bikes. The last thing I want to do is maintain my own.
Yeah, I can see that.
And you mentioned you've had a lot of time on your hands. How's this been for creatives and for you, like with all this COVID stuff going on? Has it been pretty bad for you? Or I know a few creatives had a hard time and then others have picked up work. It's been crazy.
Work-wise, it's same because, you know, I've worked for a company and it's in the building industry, so they've been pretty consistent throughout the whole time. So that's been fine. We sort of get dictated on what we have to do anyway. So that side of things is fine. My side of things, I don't know. It's been a bit of a sucky year because, like I said earlier, we're supposed to get married in March. Sold my bike. I've got this knee operation I've had to go through, so it hasn't been great lately. But I think overall I'm still in pretty good spirits. And I don't know, like creativity, it's one of those things you can take it and leave it. I think because I don't need to create anything for any particular reason. It's more just out of my own curiosity or experimentation. So I can take it and leave it as I want, or if I see something, I can play around with an idea. And if I don't think of anything, then so be it. There was some stuff I was playing around with on the weekend because I like to try and keep my posting consistent for no particular reason. Spent all Sunday trying to play around with an idea and then it didn't work out. So I'm like, I guess I won't post anything. I mean, it's not the end of the world, you know. You tell yourself that you need to do it and then all of a sudden you don't do it and you're like, oh, that's fine. Like, no need to stress about it. So it all depends on like productivity and creativity. It's how, I guess, you look after yourself. You know, I've tried for a long time to make sure I sleep right because, you know, it works hard enough to do on a daily basis without having to be super tired as well. So I've always tried to make sure, you know, get plenty of sleep, drink plenty of water, try and get away from the screens when possible and, you know, get some fresh air and whatnot. And I think those few things alone are huge. And then eating right, you know, if you're in a decent mental place, then you're in a better place, you know, if things come up that you want to experiment with, or, you know, it's okay to not do it too. But if your head's in a better place, then that's probably the best start and the best place to be at to deal with everything this year.
100%. Do you ever get kind of worried or anxious or scared about like throwing some of your work out and like, because it's a little bit kind of different, do you ever get worried how it's going to get received, or is it just
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Sometimes I'll mull over posting things or not, or, you know, you see things might not perform well and you're like, oh, people don't like it, I suck, like that was too weird or whatever. But I don't know. It's just one of those things, I guess, in my line of work or the creative line of work, you're always going to have to deal with that. So, yeah, I I do struggle with it at times, and other times it's like, oh, it's there. Like if there's no repercussions for it, or if there's no right or wrong answer, then it doesn't really matter. So, yeah, I guess you got to take the good and the bad. Sometimes you have hits and sometimes you have misses, and you know what? The next day your Instagram feed's going to be full of a whole heap of things that everyone's forgotten about anyway. So
yeah, exactly. It's one of the blessings from it.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I don't know. Like even with some of the magazine stuff, you might be happy with it at the time, and then you look back at it weeks, months, a year later, and you're like, oh, how did that get in? Like, you know, not just the magazine, but you look back on something that, you know, 6 months ago, and you're like, why did I do it like that? Or like, oh, you notice a big flaw that you would change now. And I think it's all part of the process. And like with anything, you learn with experience, and your tastes change over time. So you just have to take the good and the bad. And some people like certain things and some people don't like it. And, you know, the next day they might change their mind and they decide they do like it. So I don't know. It's like the tide, you know, it comes and goes, and every day it's different.
Bad responses are only going to make the good stuff better anyway, right? So
that's it. Yeah, you got to take the hard times to appreciate the good times.
Sick. I might start wrapping it up a little bit here and go with like the final 3 questions I like to ask with people.
Yeah, I've probably waffled on enough already.
It's been good. It's been real interesting. I guess, yeah, what advice would you have for anyone wanting to get into photography or design or into the media world? Like, how do they get into it, and how do they kind of be successful at it?
I want someone to tell me the same thing.
Yep.
I mean, I'm still trying to do it myself. I don't know. It's just got to be one of those things. You got to do it because you want to do it, you know. Do it because you enjoy it, and then it won't be so hard, you know. You go and take photos because you want to take photos and you enjoy learning about it. If you enjoy something, it's so much easier. When I did my diploma, it was full on. It was 5 days a week, half a day in the city every day, and I had to drive to the train station and then catch the train an hour and a bit into the city, do class for half a day, then go and work 3 or so hours cabinet making, then come home, do homework for the rest of the night, and then repeat the next day. So but I enjoyed it. It was new learning, and it was something that I was enjoying. So it wasn't a chore. It wasn't hard. So I guess you need to do things for the right reasons and do what you enjoy, and you'll put the time and effort in just because it's enjoyable. You know, I wouldn't post and create so many crazy graphics for Instagram if I wasn't enjoying doing it. So I think that's the main thing. Do it because you like to do it and it's enjoyable, and it'll be much easier.
For sure.
I don't know if that really...
Is there any... Nah, it makes sense. It did. Is there anything you would change in what you've done over the last few years, like what you've done in the past, or has it all been a pretty good learning experience to get where you are?
I mean, I wouldn't change how I've gone about learning and doing things. I just wish that I was probably at this point a lot earlier in life, knowing where and how I wanted to do things. Like, you know, I'm already getting to probably an age where I should, you know, lock something in properly, and that's my path, but I'm still trying to get onto that path. You know, I really want to be in the outdoors or mountain biking industry sort of full time, and I'm still working away at that. So the only thing that I would wish was that, you know, it would all happen a lot sooner, but I don't hate or regret having gone through any of the steps that I went through, because they've all been super useful to make me who I am, and for me to learn and have life skills, I guess.
For sure. I'm sure everything transfers to each job and everything you've done as well.
Yeah. So like my interests and skills sort of all play a part in each other and have all helped from some degree to another. So it's all been good. So I just wish maybe it happened 10 years ago.
Yeah, I think everyone has that kind of thought every now and then.
Yeah. But at least I've found it now, so I can sort of put my time and energy into that, and hopefully something happens sooner than later.
And last question I like to ask, it always seems to be the hardest for most people, but what kind of music do you listen to when you need to get motivated, or when you're kind of sitting down designing and you want to get in the zone? Is there anything you listen to? Is there anything specific?
I don't think it's a hard question. I think people are self-conscious about showing who they really are and their interests or their taste.
So you can say like listening to Barbie Girl or something like that.
Yeah, of course. Now for me, it's always heavy stuff, really. I sort of got into heavy music just out of curiosity, like I did with mountain biking. For some reason, I was like, I wanted to know what Slipknot was like when I was in high school. I'm like, these guys are crazy. They look cool. Like, I want to know what that's like. So I started listening to that and get down the rabbit hole of metal. And then when I started trade school, one of the guys there got me onto hardcore. He gave me, I'll say, life-changing albums. So Parkway Drive, Killing with a Smile. There's I Killed the Prom Queen, Music for the Recently Deceased, and Carpathian, Nothing to Lose. So he gave me those 3 albums, and it was like, that's it, I'm sold. Hardcore it is, or metalcore. I hate music genres, the names of it though, like it's so stupid. Just like having to say, oh, this hardcore, that's not hardcore, that's metalcore, and then it's like, oh, well, that's like screamo, or heavy metal's different, and just stupid.
Postcore, and you go down this route of different things, like the ending core. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. But I've probably had like my main favourite bands for a long time. Like I've loved the Amity Affliction, but their last few albums have been pretty rubbish, to be honest.
They've been the same. But
they just get more emo and more emo. Their lyrics are not so good lately. But love The Ghost Inside, Architects, huge fan of Dance Gavin Dance. That's probably like the band that I've listened to the most over the last probably 4 years, and that's probably like, I don't know, not an embarrassing admission, but I don't know. It's just a bit out there, but the mix of the clean vocals and the screaming, I just love it. It's good. I actually got to see him at the start of last year. It's probably one of the best gigs I've ever been to. So that was rad. But yeah, all heavy stuff. Alpha Wolf. They all turn out to be local bands, which is even better.
Well, that's just because the current Australian heavy metal core scene is so good right now.
Yeah,
like
it's good. And it's sick living in Melbourne for that. I stopped going to gigs for probably when I started studying because I just couldn't afford it. I missed out on Soundwave that year, but I probably got to see 2 gigs, and I saw all the bands that I wanted to see anyway. I saw Bring Me the Horizon, Pierce Me the Veil, Amua, Of Mice and Men.
Sick.
Maybe 1 or 2 other ones, but yeah. Frank Carter and the Rattlesnakes, that's another good one. Their albums was sick. I saw them last year too. Was last year or the year before?
Their gigs look really good. They look really, really performance orientated.
Yeah. Frank Carter's a madman.
Yeah, they're sick. Yeah, good bands. I like it.
Yeah. All the heavy stuff, it's good. It's good to chill because it takes the stress and your anger out, but it's also good to pump you up as well. That's the way it's always been for me with heavy music. Some people are like, I don't know how you can listen to that. Like, used to listen to it at 5:30 in the morning working the trade, and some of the older guys would just lose their shit and they turn it off. Like, how do you listen to that? It just like drains the day. And I'm like, nah, it's good. It's good stuff. You can still listen to it. You do your long drive in the morning to go for a ride or go to a race or whatnot, and it's the first thing that goes on.
Yeah, 100% get it. It's so that's good. Easy, man. Well, I think we'll end on that because it's amazing. Yeah. Thanks so much for coming on, man. It's been really cool to hear your story.
Yeah. Hopefully some people find it interesting, not waffling on too much.
No, not at all, man. It's definitely, it's good to hear from, don't take this the wrong way, but like, it's good to hear from someone coming up in the industry at the moment, and it's not always about the people that are like there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no offense taken whatsoever.
And I'm definitely keen to see when you get in the industry more. It's definitely going to be rad.
Yeah, thank you, man. I can't wait. Hopefully some people might hear this and might give me a chance to show them what I can do.
Yeah, give Nev a job. This is his job ad. No interview needed.
No, just slide into my DMs with an offer and away we go.
Easy, man. Thanks so much for coming on. And,
thanks so much for having me.
Keep sane in this crazy time.
Yeah, I'll try.
Thanks, man. Speak soon.
Thanks, brother.
Thanks so much for listening